even do the countdown. We're just going into it fucking live. Fuck it, we'll do it live. Well, we're just getting ourselves situated. Hopefully everyone's sitting comfortably.
I'm actually kneeling.
Oh no.
Where are you? Are you in a car? It looks like you're in a minivan.
No, I'm in my garage because my brother's watching UFC.
He couldn't watch UFC in the garage then.
No. We only got one TiVo, so
well, I think we could start off with a little bit of, gay levity. I feel like this is clearly an event with all the charm of a Zoom conference and all the nuance and political content of Twitch streaming. So everyone's in for a treat, I find. Well, so anyway, I'm Gian. I'm from Twink Revolution, and that's about all I have to say about what I work on. Sam, who are you?
You didn't say you were drinking.
No. Yeah. I'm drinking beer.
It's local craft.
Drinking local Wisconsin beer.
Yeah, supporting
it's
the Kulaks.
Yeah, it's delicious.
I'm Sam. I'm the co-host and co-editor of Twink Rev, and I run the Gay Log series, which is part of that Twink Rev universe, and it hasn't been done in a while, but it's coming out, and then I don't know. I have some writing coming out soon.
River, who are you, and what are you drinking?
I am the editor or contributing editor at twinkrev.com, and I'm drinking gin and tonic, a Red Bull, and some water.
All at once?
I just got off work. I'm tired, but also I want to relax, but also I want to stay hydrated.
You're practicing self-care and self-violence.
Yeah.
Well, very good. We're still waiting for our dear friend Esperanza. Mila, who are you? Why are you in a garage again? And what are you drinking?
Yeah, so I'm living in like small-ish living quarters right now, hopefully temporarily. So my brother and I share a basement, and I don't have a door, so because it's like not meant for two people. So I've been so he's watching UFC, so I had to come here. And I mean, I support his right to watch UFC. I am not drinking because my garage is also my workout space, and I feel like that would not be good, but
it's violating a sacred space.
It's kind of a sacred space, but depending on how the conversation goes, I might grab a White Claw. Yeah. Who am I? I co-host the Unacceptable podcast with Ken Clark, and I host my own show called Actually at Capacity. It's a new show. It's just chatting with interesting people about interesting things, and I hope that people have enjoyed it, and if you haven't seen it, check it out.
Lovely. Fox, whomst are you?
Hi, I'm Fox. I'm one half of the Red Lettuce YouTube podcast thing. You should, we're totally not ultra vegan homosexual terrorists, and we're not horny either on main. So,
cut his mic.
Awesome.
I'm just trying to get some avatars updated here. Just type in the ban button. Well, what are you drinking?
Oh, great.
Are you staying hydrated?
I'm drinking a Starbucks refresher because I am a fag, and it's peach passion fruit.
Ooh.
Pay me, Starbucks.
Well.
Yeah, I've been cleaning. That's what I've been doing.
Oh.
Radical.
That's praxis. So. And this stranger sitting between us. Hi, Eric.
Hi.
Who are you? What the hell are you doing here? And what are you drinking?
I'm the newest member of your gay commune here in Milwaukee. So like Fox said, I am the other half of the Red Lettuce, and we have exciting episodes coming out soon. We have some new collabs coming up, so be prepared for those. And I am drinking some whiskey, and eventually I'm going to need some water because I'm going to be hungover later. I'm sure. It's in the hour.
Lovely.
Well, and those of you watching, hello, welcome. You are beautiful to us.
We'll put up your comments as relevant.
Yeah. So, feel free to, this is meant to be a conversation. And so, throw whatever you're thinking about in the chat, or just sound off, or, just abuse us. It's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever you're here for, we're here for.
We're
it.
also, we're into some S&M BDSM.
Right. Yeah. No, exactly.
We're into the abuse.
So
I mean, we get it on Twitter, so why not?
Exactly. We're all about the abuse.
We're all about abuse.
Well, Sam, I don't know. Do you want to kick us off on the general theme of the evening?
Yeah. So it's been a while since we've done one of these because life, and we're busy people, or pretend to be busy. I don't know. I'm wasting your lives.
Hi, Olympia. Hi, Stalinist.
But we're back, and I thought, since we have a new president in America, Joe Biden, if you haven't heard, it's obviously fucked up a lot of the left who seemed like they were going to be on board for more radical Marxist stuff, and then they all jump ship like that. So I thought we should ask, what are your thoughts on the current state of the left in the Biden administration, and where you kind of see the left going? And obviously, all of us are Americans except our lovely Canadian correspondent, Mila. So I want to start off our foreigner.
First, can we title
correspondent?
Can we title this segment "Sundowning in America"? KKK.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mila. Tell us. Please woman-splain Biden's presidency to us.
Well, I mean, in Canada, I've been like in the heart of neoliberalism for the last good while. Hello to Olympia Logic. So I have, but I've been observing, obviously, mostly on foreign policy issues. So as you can probably surmise, I'm not too happy about one of the architects of the Iraq War becoming president of the US. What's kind of shocked me a lot is I've seen a lot of American leftists who have been like, okay, yeah, like we need to vote for Biden, and like as the lesser evil, now sharing all of these infographics. Look at all these terrible things Biden is doing. And maybe I'm being unfair because maybe like they're just like, okay, well, that's like the lesser of the evils. But I think, it really shows like a sign of sort of like there not being a real left in America, and in Canada it's kind of largely the same. Like our so-called left is still really bad on things like imperialism.
Blackface.
When I think of left in Canada, I don't even think of Trudeau. I think of like our NDP, who are like social democrats. They're kind of more like the AOC brand of things. And we had like one MP that tried to be like anti-imperialist and got like articles about how she's a dictator lover or something. So it's looking very bleak to me. I don't know. It's just been a very depressing moment. And I'm not hopeful about Biden. I suspect it's going to be a synthesis of the Bush and Obama years, which for the rest of the world, if not just the US, it's going to be disastrous, right? So those are my thoughts.
Wow. Is that me?
Oh, you can. Sure, if you want to go, whoever wants to go.
Sure. Well, I'll quickly say I didn't vote for Joe Biden. I'll happily say, which we all know is equivalent to voting for literal fascism.
I didn't vote.
So I think this is a reversion to type for the left, and it's okay. It's going to be okay. It's not a good news story. I'm simply saying it's like. The left has been a chaotic mess. Bernie stitched it together for a few precious years, where there was some notion that like there was some something to organize around and something to put people's energies into. And now we're back to the state, the pre-Bernie state of everyone just being losers and extremely online and whatever else. King of the protest cage nonsense reigning. And that's what we will see, I think, under Biden.
Yeah. River, what about you? You have lots of thoughts, and I want to know what your thoughts are on this.
So I think that people believe that they can push Joe Biden into becoming the sort of Cold War liberal that Bernie Sanders is. But like the reason that Bernie's politics seemed radical, even though he's to like the right of Eisenhower, is because he just like didn't give that shit up after the Cold War, and there was no reason for that type of politics to exist anymore in America because, in the words of Margaret Thatcher, there was no alternative. So like I don't like there's no reason for Joe Biden. Like these people have eliminated the entire reason for like any kind of political change to occur, because like there's no reason for Joe Biden to do anything that the left is, and when I say the left, I mean like the DSA adjacent people, AOC, whatever. Like there's no reason for him to acquiesce to their demands because they've already like given him everything, like given him support. So like, I mean, if you are cooperating with someone, like you can't then like be like, oh, okay, so we helped you, so you'll help us, right? It's like, no, because like he knew you were going to help him either way. Like there was never a moment where they were like, you know, if you have to meet our set of demands and then we will offer you our critical support. It went the complete other way around, where it was like, we will shame anybody who does not get behind Joe Biden as like a Trump supporter or like a fash or like whatever. And then after the election, somehow we will push him left. And it's like, no, that's not how politics works. And yeah, I don't see, I mean, he himself said like to bankers, which I think is the only people he speaks honestly to, that nothing would fundamentally change, and nothing has fundamentally changed. And I don't expect it to, except for in the areas of like culture war and like responsibilizing the public.
Right.
Like, you know, they'll blame like the fact that like they didn't handle COVID any better than Trump did by like, oh, well, you didn't wear 3 masks at a time. And so I think that's where we're going.
Yep. Yeah. Fox, what do you think?
I think that I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I think that liberals have always been deluded into thinking that they're going to push any politician left. I voted for Gloria La Riva. I did not vote for Joe Biden. He was like one of the few Democratic candidates that I like at the beginning of the primary was like, I will absolutely not vote for Joe Biden. Other candidates I would consider, and you know, just plug my nose and go for it. But like, and the reason why I think liberals are wait, are you still there?
Yeah, we were losing you for a second there.
Sorry, yeah, my internet kind of like. But the reason why I say that I think liberals are a little delusional is because they, you know, I don't think they actually. Part of me thinks that they don't actually believe that they can push him left, but part of me, and so that they were just saying that so that they could like bully people into, you know, getting Trump out of office so that they can go back to brunch. But the other part of me like really thinks that they know that there's no way, there's no atonement in a society or in a political system where you vote away your representation. Like you vote away your power to a handful of people who are bought by corporations. And so when you start calling that out and you're like, no, there's a reason half of the United States doesn't vote, because they know that these people don't work for us. Whenever I talk to my conservative family, they're always like, yeah, these politicians are crazy and corrupt. And I mean, half of them support Trump anyway, but I'm just like they had like, there is a fundamental understanding that the system doesn't work for us, but at the same time, there's this like really fierce defense of it from liberals that just overpowers like real leftist organizing. And I think the future of the, like, you know, if left-wing movements are going to survive in the United States, they need to really start reaching out to the masses instead of trying to be like the one political party that leads us to sunshine and roses and Medicare for all. And it's, you know, like I think that is really destructive. I think that's also really delusional, that like people are going to come to your party. Like you need to reach them. And that's part of why I haven't like, I mean, I was looking at different parties to join, and I mean, just the outreach was not, you know, not enough for me personally. So I think that we've got like a huge, I think we have to stop like trying to convince liberals that we can organize with them. Like I don't think
What about you, Eric?
Say hello to our dear friend Peter Coffin.
Hi,
We're glad you're enjoying this conversation.
Do you want
I like that people are loving my hair. Thank you so much. I
very fiery.
I am really glad I could bless you by being so pretty. So
thank you.
Yeah, those are my rambling thoughts about everyone. So.
In-person Eric, what are your in-person thoughts? I'm going to touch you while you say them.
He's also very tall. I thought he would be
unexpectedly tall, honestly.
Also, like in his chair, like it's also higher than yours. So.
Yeah.
He's tall and
oh, sorry.
tall.
Well, my thoughts up here.
Yes.
Right here.
Yeah. Stick it in your mouth.
Stick it in my mouth. Okay.
Yeah, like a
It's
dick.
been a while. Okay. So my thoughts are, I think the main issue what we have is there's a lot of still like the new left thinking, the new left like ideology, the synthetic left permeates a lot of leftist circles and organizations and, you know, just people's minds in general. And I think that's something that we see, and that's our biggest ideological barrier to actually formulating an actual left opposition, a socialist opposition. And I think a lot of people that make up the synthetic left or this new left think that the Democratic Party is still the same Democratic Party it was in the 30s. And it's not that way anymore. As conditions have changed, this party's drastically changed. So we have to act accordingly. So that means we need to come up with new tactics. And that's like, you know, Fox was saying, we have to get to the masses. I think that's our new tactic. And I think I agree. Like liberals and social Dems are very hard to organize with and convince. I think we really need to be focused on like more of like the lumpen and people who are more conservatively leaning, who have been abandoned, disillusioned by Trump. And there's a lot of people on this new in the new left and the synthetic left who are really opposed to that, and that's wrong. And that's why it's such a I think that's why we're having a lot of difficulties actually organizing and challenging the two capitalist imperialist parties.
Yeah.
Wow, sounds like a Strasserism to me.
I'm noticing one of the comments here that says I'm losing hope because of the libs.
Oh.
And I feel that 100%, but that's part of the problem, is that we have the left has spent so much energy trying to influence the Democratic Party that we don't have any resources outside of it. So, I mean, we kind of have to start from scratch in some area. You know what I mean? And
yeah, we definitely need our own party.
Yeah, it really sucks because that's a lot of work that clearly we don't want to do because yeah, I mean, it's going to take a long time to do that. So it does make sense that it would be beneficial to infiltrate the party, or the Democratic Party, and bring it to the left. But then when it splits, half of them are going to go to the Republican Party, and then we'll still be outnumbered and without anything on the outside to support us. So, there's no like working class power. You can't reform a bourgeois party of war and terror. You can like disrupt it and join it and like cause a commotion, but if you're still signing these like unavoidable war budgets, what's the point of getting Medicare for all if we're still like bombing people overseas and stuff like that? And that's something that, that's not our fault.
And also I'd like to add, I think we also need to look at, we also need to be strategic in who we align with like within the petty bourgeois as well. I'm not sure which faction we're going to be aligning with. I don't know, but that's also something we have to look into, and who we need to court and convince to align with us.
I think another very important thing is, I think the downfall of the left is the main base historically of recruitment doesn't exist in the U.S. anymore. We don't have a large industrial base, or most of those bases have been dissolved in cities where most of these chapters rely. Like San Francisco is just a nonprofit industrial complex, and like LA like has a lot of the petit bourge, and like a lot of these like bigger cities have very liberal cultures because they have that petit bourge class, or they're not appealing to the groups in those countries or cities that are actually working class, because most people don't engage in politics. I think we think the world's so negative because we only engage with the liberals who care about politics, but most people don't vote. Most people don't care. And also, I think the left is still trying to use the liberal sphere as an area of recruitment. And I think that's wrong. I think in many ways, the more conservative working class, even like Trump base, I think could be better, or the disenfranchised. I think also a lot of them pushed the idea that, well, Biden's still better. And I think if your goal is like to overthrow capitalism or whatever, imperialism, you don't want the guy who stabilizes it. You want the guy who greatly destabilizes it. And that's why like it's going to be controversial. Like I think Trump was the better choice because he destabilized empire. He couldn't regime change anyone. He did Bolivia for like a year, and it fucked up. Like a lot of the places actually seem to get more stable because China and Russia and Iran were rising up and helping each other versus the U.S., where like even Europe's kind of like, ooh, I don't really want to help these people. They're kind of assholes. Like,
well, I can maybe bring it to the next point a little bit.
Actually, I want to point out something I forgot to mention. We also have to realize during the 30s, like what I was mentioning, I mean, the Democratic Party, for example, just didn't like align with the working class or like the Communist Party because they were, they were good people. They were forced to.
Yeah.
So there was a strong militant and disciplined communist movement and party that made them concede thing. That's why we got the reforms that we got. That's how we got the changes that we got during that time.
Right.
And so that's something we need to also look at and remember.
Well, yeah. And so, I mean, I guess something worth calling out, or teasing out rather, is the idea that the left is a term we all use very comfortably, but it doesn't fucking mean anything. It can mean something when it has some pole of attraction. And I think historically that was, for example, the Soviet Union was a useful place for any groups of people who were like, yep, we can look at that and we can orient our politics either kind of positively or negatively towards that right. Or we can align with it in certain ways. We can structure our political activities with respect to some center of gravity. And collapse of the Soviet Union, as someone in the comments there, Stalinist Bella Lapdog 1995 was yes, calling out nicely. The USSR was the vanguard of international socialism. The collapse of that, obviously, through what little was left of a grouping that could sensibly be called the left, right? Which encompassed everything from some left liberals who are a little bit pink around the gills, to dyed-in-the-wool communists, to every Marxist, sect and reading group on every campus in America or whatever. And Bernie had the same effect, briefly, right? You had all the kind of losers who were like, actually, I'm to the left of Bernie. Or you had other people, orienting their politics around Bernie's campaign as a center of gravity. We don't have that now. And I think it's where terms like the left become really difficult because they don't describe anything.
At least in the US.
There is no, yeah. I mean, but even internationally, I think the left can mean, it can mean the grouping of all the left parties of capitalism in any given state. So I guess what we want to talk a little bit about is the notion of left unity. I think I've always been pretty clear that I don't think it's a concept that has any value. I think it's like, I think class unity matters and left unity is nonsense. And given that the left as a descriptor contains a lot of people who are class antagonists of the working class, all the fucking left libs are class enemies. Why would we have any fucking unity with them? And anybody calling for unity is doing sort of some doing something shitty. Anyway, that's my take.
I would love to respond to that.
Dive in, Fox, and then we'll go to Mila.
So someone left a comment about Alexander Dugin and Eurasianism, and while I am not an expert on Eurasianism, I have read most of the fourth political theory, and Dugin. I'm not like a Duginist by any means. I'm a Marxist, but he argues that communism is dead and fascism is dead, and the most important enemy to defeat is liberalism. And while I think that Marxism is not dead, I think it's very much alive. So I disagree with him on that. His analysis on liberalism is pretty spot on. But I agree 100% about class unity instead of left unity, because look at where left unity has gotten us. It's gotten us it's turned the Democratic Party into a graveyard for our politics. And Marxism is a science. It's not just some sticker you put on your notebook. You know what I mean? It's like,
if you want to buy one of those, check out the store.
Yeah. There's right. But I think that when you start talking about people's material conditions instead of you should be on the left, they're listening to you. I have a lot of my family is in Texas right now, and we never talk politics ever because we totally disagree on a lot of stuff. But we have been texting when they get power. My uncle got power. He lost power Sunday and he got power back yesterday around noon. And so I'm texting my cousin though whenever she gets power, and I'm just like, hey, look at deregulation, look at this and look at what's happening. This is the ramifications. And they're I wouldn't say that they're on board with Marxism now, but they're listening. When you stop looking at things in terms of left and right, and it makes it easier to talk about. It makes it easier to critique the system, right? And it makes it easier to make suggestions about what the cure is, because the cure is socialism. But no one's going to listen to you if you say socialism. You've got to speak to their material conditions when shit hits the fan. Does that make sense? Am I
I just want to break in really quickly. Somebody's echoing. That was us. Here, just hit that mute button there. Thank you. No, it's not me. Anyway, so thank you. Whoever that was. Just wanted to welcome Esperanza. Esperanza, we were asking everybody who they are and what they're drinking. So we'd love to hear that from you, and then we're going to hear from River and Mila, and then you on the topic of left unity and the value of it. But who are you? What are you drinking?
Yeah, hey everyone. My name is Esperanza. I am one of the new contributing editors to Twink Rev. I'm also, an organizer and a full member with Affirm. We are Association of Feminists Fighting Fascism, Imperialism, Refeudalization, and Marginalization. A lot of my work right now involves sort of investigating and fighting against imperialist sexual exploitation. But I'm also really interested in a whole bunch of other topics, such as, two things I'm working on are also a critique of like liberal trans activism, and also a critique of the word and the concept classism, which I think is really like insufficient. So yeah, nice to see everyone and be here.
Thank you. It's nice to see you too. Mila, left unity. Are you unified?
Okay, well, I mean, I feel like I've been having a lot of like existential crises about my own political views, and like I've definitely cycled through a lot of political views. And yeah, like I do think that, for me, Marxism is the most plausible philosophy, obviously, but I also think that we need to be open to the fact that society is changing and that we need to be constantly rethinking and being creative about like what kind of conditions we need to like adapt our ideas to, because like we're not in the same time period as Marx anymore. And like even Canada and the US, we don't have the exact same conditions. Like I was saying when I went on the Red Lettuce, like the settler discourse in Canada and the US should be different because there were different events that happened. And so I think it's really important, and I think for me primarily, as someone who's just been guided by anti-imperialism my whole life, and that's my like first priority. I think that, the problem with a lot of leftists is that what they want is like they have this ideal, and then people who don't meet this like standard of the ideal are written off as like immoral people. And so I think it's very hard to create unity with them because they don't have a sort of like shared goal, say, rather like they have more of a shared sort of idea of what a good person is supposed to look like. And so it becomes like, okay, how can we model and I also want to address this new question about what Anna said in Tim Dillon's interview, because I thought that was a good interview. I think in a way, like it is in the sense that we might have conceived of it in the past. Like there's a sense in which we can't go back, and socialism is not like I've said before, it's not going to look, it can't look the same everywhere, right? And so, socialism as it existed in the USSR might be dead. But yeah, like it doesn't mean that like we can't be inspired or guided by guided by the way that socialism was practiced before, inspired by that. And I really encourage people to be inspired by all kinds of ideas and not try to unite necessarily under like traditional lines, so to speak. And so like even the term the left, I'm not really sure about its usefulness, and so I don't know how we can really unite on that front. Also, like half the left yelled at me so hard during whole Syria thing that like I don't want to be friends with them anymore.
Yeah, we're getting rid of fake left friends in 2021.
Yeah, no more fake friends, no more black flag friends for me. No, I'm kidding. But I do think my point is that I think that there's issues that we can unite on. And that doesn't necessarily mean like just leftists. So when I've done like anti-war stuff, I've worked with libertarians, and like I think that that's, you know, like that can be useful as well, depending on what the issue is, obviously. And so I just believe in, I don't know, just having, we need to have a big old think and think about where we're at, because I think we keep trying to, I think we have like a little too much nostalgia right now, when we need to kind of look forward and think like, come up with our new sort of ideas. Not that I don't love history of political thought. Like I think it's inspiring, and you need to, you know, familiarize yourself with that. But I really do believe in sort of generating ideas as well. And so I don't want to limit who I can generate ideas with, if that makes sense.
If I may interject here also, anti-fascism is a verb. So you know, you weren't like, we can't just organize with people who would call themselves leftists. That's not, you know, that's putting yourself in an echo chamber. And if anti-fascists in the you know, early 20th century, they infiltrated like fascist meetings and started speaking to material conditions and moved people towards the science of Marxism. And it was really successful. And that's like, I don't know where all these like 2021 anti-fascist people get that you aren't supposed to talk to these people, but that's literally wrong and incorrect. And
they'll infect you with their mind virus. That's the
like
keep yourself pure.
You know, we call ourselves, you know, we recognize a political spectrum and we call ourselves on the left, right? But like we have to talk to people and speak their language. Mm-hmm. And we can't, you know, we can't just be like hammers and sickles and this is, you know, like, you know, it's great that we recognize that, but the nostalgia it's not politics, it's not organizing, it's, you know, I think it's great that people wear hammers and sickles. I have tons of stuff with on it. But I think what Mila is saying is really important, is that we can't just stick to those labels and then just befriend anyone who already agrees with us. Like it doesn't like make a lot of sense.
Yeah. Right. Just want to go to River. You're a big left unity guy, right? You just love to sing Kumbaya with all your friends in the Democratic Party, the DSA, the Black Flag anarchists. They all love you. What are you doing on left unity?
They love me so much they wanted everyone to know where I lived.
We can send you care packages and flowers.
And flowers.
We want to send you edible arrangements.
Right, yeah. I love those chocolate covered strawberries. No, so yeah, I think that the problem with so-called like left unity is, you know, like as Esperanza was saying, if there's people that you can work with on like specific issues, like working with libertarians, like on like anti-war stuff.
I mean, not all women are the same, River. Your misogyny is showing.
Is that what Mila, right?
You said Esperanza.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She's full of good ideas, but this one was
Mila. My bad. I'm sorry, Mila. You know, or if it's a specific issue that, you know, you can work with people on, you know, of course you should do that. But I think that the problem that we have right now is that the cultural battles of the left have pretty much been won. And so all of these people who, and I mean, let's be honest, like that's where most of the money is on the left, is in the cultural issues, because it's easy to get rich people to donate money to something that doesn't really threaten their interests. So there's like a lot of people who, you know, there's entire organizations built up to, you know, the idea of, you know, us still living in like the 1950s, you know, in terms of like homophobia and like racism and like all of that. And like the truth is that like we are at an all-time low in terms of like interpersonal bigotries of all kinds. That doesn't mean there's still not like bigoted people, but to ignore that reality is insane. And it also, like, you know, it could be a great opportunity, because, you know, 50 years ago, you know, really couldn't like organize black and white workers together in the South very easily because of like interpersonal racism. And now that's not really a problem anymore, because if you go into any working class white family in the South, they have black people in their family. I have black people in my family. Like, you know, people might not be, you know, woke exactly, but they don't have like any hatred towards people in their hearts, at least not most people anyway. You know, like I remember when I was driving home for Christmas, my mom called me and she said, "Well, your brother's marrying an Indian." And I was like, okay. And I was like, "Do you mean like Asian?" Or she was like, "No, like a reservation Indian. She's a sweet girl. I like her." Like, and I was like, and you know, my brother's like a union worker. He's an electrician. He's marrying a Native American woman, and like he didn't vote for fucking Joe Biden, not because he's like a bigot. He doesn't care that I'm gay. Like he's just like, you know, like it's. I mean, he told me like at Christmas, he was like, I mean, I don't know, like he gave me a check. I was like, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much all that's being offered right now. So I mean, like, I don't blame him. I don't give a shit. But you know, I think the term left really doesn't at this point, like, is not a useful describer of anything. And I think that's why you see the term kind of like post left pop up in the discourse. And like, I mean, I've never identified as that, but I remember, I think it may have been on your podcast, Sam and Gian, where you had Class Redux Kill on, and he was like from the Fed Post, and he said like, I mean, I call myself, you know, I'm not post left, I'm post whatever the fuck this is, or something. And I was like, yeah, I feel that.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, like that kind of spoke to me. I mean, there's, yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to see how all these various factions that call themselves, you know, the left could unite behind a singular goal at this point, because there's just so many disagreements and there's no like structural power.
Right. River, just quickly, there's a question in the chat. So who's the gay person in your Southern family? Look to your left, look to your right.
We don't have a lesbian cousin, you know.
It's you.
We try not to talk about. No, I'm just kidding.
Eric, Left Unity. You're in a room with two other self-described leftists. How's that going? How's the unity feeling?
Well, no, I like what you said earlier. I think the whole like left unity bit is so useless. I think class unity is the correct way to describe.
Put it in your face.
In your
Hey,
face.
it's so aggressive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that much better. I think this whole left unity thing doesn't mean anything. But we also, I kind of like what Mila and Fox were saying earlier too. I just want to add that we have such a rich socialist history here in the United States. And I highly recommend people read William Z. Foster's book on the Communist Party of the United States, the history of that. And we need to, and so since we do have such a rich socialist history here in the United States, we really need to examine, remember, and learn from it. And we need to take back what socialism means and explain to people that it's not what the synthetic left defines it as. Socialism is about optimism, construction, solidarity, and prosperity. And that's the message we need to take to people. And I think that's what we really need to be focusing on right now, and apply that to our conditions.
Here, here. Sam,
Esperanza.
Well, oh yes, sorry.
Yeah.
I forgot you were here.
Yeah.
You're fine. It's okay. I guess I'm Mila today.
Yeah.
No, it's
Mila,
okay.
going back to you.
I still love you, River. Don't worry. So there's like a few thoughts I have on this. One, in terms of left unity, one thing is in terms of, well, the two words left and unity, I think that a lot of people in the US see left as anything that is currently defined as progressive, right? So like they might think like being friendly to trans people, being friendly to gay people, trying not to be ableist, whatever that means at the moment, is like that's what people think is left. I think that left needs to be defined as your orientation towards capitalism. Are you in support of it or are you in opposition to it? So I think one, that should be the sort of baseline who is left and who is not. But in terms of unity, again, I think it's unity for what purpose? Are we building a united front against fascism, against imperialism, against war, against U.S. military aggression against China, which would make action on climate impossible? Like in terms of that sort of unity, building a united front in that way, yes, I think I'm for it. In terms of giving up ideological struggle against, for example, like anarchism, which I believe to be an incorrect ideology, or liberalism, I would say no. I think it's important to engage in ideological struggle, especially right now. We are not in a revolutionary period, but we will be at some point. And so right now, ideological struggle is extremely important, as well as developing correct ideas. Kwame Ture says that a revolutionary change is possible when conditions are declining, but people's consciousness is rising. So we don't just raise consciousness through any idea or any way. We have to develop the correct ideas and embed them in the masses. And that's why I like the idea of a mass line versus the idea of populism, right? In populism, it's just sort of anything that's currently popular, you just sort of adopt and like run your platform on that. Whereas with the idea of a mass line, it's like from the masses to the masses. You take what's true, but you correct what's not true, right? And you learn from them, and then you synthesize it and put it back out there. And so I think that's a good orientation. And then the last thing I want to say about the like sort of ideas about socialism in the past versus now, Marxism is a science, and I think it's really important for us to hold true to that. A science is not a science if it is just fixed and stuck in the past. I mean, imagine if biological science didn't advance in the past 100 years. I mean, it wouldn't be a science. It would be something in a history book, right? It wouldn't help us at this point. So we have to apply that science to our current conditions. We have to test it. We have to continually critique it. And I think part of what we also need to remember is that in terms of scientific socialism, in particular, the lab by which we test scientific socialism is revolution. And that's why studying world historical revolutions are so important. For example, what Lenin proved was the idea that you do need a party. You do need a vanguard party in order to break the capitalist state and take power. That has not happened without a vanguard party. So we know through the lab of revolution that a party is a necessary component of taking power, right? Some might disagree with me, but I would argue that Mao proved that class struggle continues under socialism, right? And that is a necessary component, right? So I think that like mechanical thinking about historical revolutions is bad. Trying to mechanically imitate what happened in Russia or China to here is bad. But taking the universal truths that were proven in world historical revolutions, studying the particular conditions of our time and our location, and then applying those truths to them, I think is good.
Well, and let me challenge you, only because I think you evaded a question, Esperanza. But everything you said was true and wonderful. But you mentioned that you think the anarchists are incorrect in their analysis, or that their ideology is perhaps not a correct one. They self-describe as the left. How do you feel about the tension then therefore exists with any notion of trying to build unity with, say, anarchists specifically? And I only say that because I know your politics.
Yeah, so I mean, I think again, it's like unity for what? Unity for the sake of unity is BS, in my opinion. I'm not interested in that. But if there are anarchists, let's say in my neighborhood, who want to fight a, like gentrifying developer who's going to come in and wipe out the working class residents, let's have unity in that and let's fight them, sure. And I think, again, this is where we need to look at contradictions and see, are they antagonistic right now or are they non-antagonistic? If we're fighting a hotel developer right now, then the contradiction between us and anarchists is non-antagonistic. If a revolutionary moment happens and we are building power, building steam, and they're trying to stop us, then it is antagonistic. And at that point, we recognize that and we take care of it.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Sam?
Yeah. So I kind of think of like the state of the U.S. left. And I think when I mean the left, I mean like those who are like at least Marxist, and that excludes the DSA because they are a failure based on structure alone. They won't allow a centralized structure, and that's the root of their failure. They basically allow anyone in, and that allows the anarchists to kick out all the Marxists who already have enough pressures from everyone else. But there's so many Marxist, Leninists, vanguard parties in America. Like there's so many. It's like, what are we, Trotskyites? Like, but I feel like at this point, like I think Esperanza mentioned, we're not in a period of revolution. It's like, why are we all so separated into small micro parties when I look at them and their policy stances, and there's very marginal differences. And I feel like the purpose of a party is not to have uniform, like everyone in the party just agrees exactly, but instead to come together for the broader picture, which should be like revolutionary struggle. And we need that not as a bunch of little parties, but as a big mass Marxist, Leninist party. Like I look to other countries and kind of what they did after the collapse of the global like struggle for working class people. I was reading about Nepal yesterday, and what they did is their Marxist-Leninist party and their Maoist party unified together to make a majority, and they actually run a lot of the government now. And I feel like we kind of need to get over these like theoretical differences in the now, because right now I think we mostly agree in the revolutionary struggle or how we build mass popularity. We can have the debates when the time comes, but right now it's like we're so far from anything that's feasible that I think it's just kind of dumb to be like, oh, well, do you think Kim Jong-il is the greatest man alive? It's like, well, is that really the question that matters, or is it's not relevant to like revolution in like the US or Canada? Like it matters if like you don't want to invade them imperialism, but like a lot of people believe that. Like some anarchists actually believe that. A lot of them don't really, but they say they do. So I think that's the thing that I think about is like, oh, like there's a lot of people, but we're all just dividing based on a lot of like historical lines. Kind of tying to like what Fox said of like being trapped in the nostalgia. Mila also mentioned this. I was like, all these divisions were historical things when the Soviet Union was alive, when there was this split between China and the Soviet Union, and all these different divisions. And it's like, those don't exist anymore. Why are we trapped in those? Why are you being stubborn people when we need leadership? We need people actually organizing the masses. And you're still like, well, they didn't believe that Khrushchev or Stalin's invasion of Hungary was good. It's like, who gives a fuck? It already happened. You can't change anything about the history. What matters is what we do now. And I feel like everyone's just trapped in the past, which is has to do with a lot of leadership too. Like they haven't brought in a lot of young people, like, which is also a blessing and a curse because a lot of them are cringe as well. Like I feel like people are just trapped in the past and they don't want to just unify and get over their small bullshit.
Well, I'm going to break in.
If I can.
Well, let me just break in to give the order of the program, and then I'm going to come back to everybody on a related topic. And you feel free to offer commentary on anything there. So we're gonna try and hit one more topic here, which is broadly kind of imperialism and internationalism. Mm-hmm. And then we'll go to a Q&A. So basically, I've seen there's lots of questions being dropped in the chat here. But what I want to do is a little quick fire round. I'm holding you all to this. I'm going to cut you off. You got like 45 seconds. Because Self-Optimizer, who was written for Twink Revolution, and hello, welcome, nice to see you, was asking about the sort of the Marxist Bezoists, which, if you're not familiar with this, it's the idea that perhaps there's a split within the left currently of those who think that our current economic moment is allowing for a consolidation of basically the petty bourgeois getting wiped out right now by the true industrialists, right? I mean, Amazon is winning, and your mom and pop shops and the much fated boat dealerships or whatever, those are all getting eaten up, and there's a consolidation going on. And within the left broadly, and even within the Marxist left, there's those who are saying that's good because that means we only have one thing to nationalize. Amazon gobbles them all up, and then we nationalize Amazon, and then we're done. And then there's the other people saying, fuck no, like, oh my God, like, yes, labor violations aside, like that communities actually, businesses that are rooted within communities are a good thing. Mm-hmm. What do we think about that? And feel free to offer any follow-up thoughts on left unity. But I will very quickly say, I'm a small business guy, and that might be my most reactionary position. And I know all the downsides of them, but I would say that I still value difference and choice under a capitalist mode of distribution. It's the one good thing we have, is that our we can have choice, right? And we can have something that is rooted within our communities and at least accountable to our communities through a consumer mechanism. I like small businesses. I actually think they're better for our community. And the idea of Amazon just like getting to consolidate everything is a horror show to me. So we'll try and go in approximately reverse order here. Fox, you're welcome to jump in, and then we'll go back through what we did. Through Sam, then Eric, then Esperanza,
River,
then Mila, then River. Then Mila. Sorry, Esperanza, then River, then Mila. And then cool. Okay, but anyway, so go for it, Fox.
So I'm just gonna answer the question here. I have to agree with you. I think it's if we're talking about accelerationists, I think that letting Amazon buy everything is not good. I think that would, just nationalizing Amazon wouldn't solve a lot of the problems of labor violations, or how long is that going to take, right? So I think also what we should focus on when talking about small businesses is that when people's businesses are bought up by these larger corporations, the capitalist state is helping them do that, is helping these large businesses put these smaller businesses out, right? So I think that it would be beneficial for us to help people defend their business, their small businesses, and say, hey, this is bad, here's why, and then start talking like a Marxist and say, it's we can't strip away power and business from our communities, because then they'll all have McDonald's and Walmarts all over them and stuff like that. There's nothing. I mean, it's ugly, right? It's ugly to me. And I think, especially with coronavirus wiping out people's businesses right now, I think this is an opportune time for us to point out the contradiction between capital and community.
Yeah. Is it me?
I think it's you.
Cool. So I think with small business, I agree. Is so far in this current stage of development, I think small business prevents the pure monopolization of industry. I think that's important to protect, even though there's a lot of contradictions of issues of small business getting exemptions from a lot of labor laws. Because if you're under a certain, usually 50 or under, you get exempted from certain labor protections and minimum wage and stuff like that. which I think is an issue to address when the time comes. And I'll obviously support labor struggles within those places whenever. But I also think the small business thing really has a big umbrella term. Because I think of like my sister, she runs a small business. She's the only worker, and she sells wigs, and she does all of that. And there's no like hierarchy within that. She just does it, and she's not making a ton of money, and she still lives at home. Or like I think in Oakland, there's like there's fruit ladies. They sell like the like cut up fruit with like tahini and like lime, and I'm like, there's no like they're not my enemy. Like these people are also just trying to make means and do it, and I'm like, I think that's very different from like some of the bigger small businesses. So I think that's important. And I also think on the international stage, I think people allowing the mass consolidation ignore that it means globally you're consolidating industry. And I think that's just not just bad for like choice or whatever, but also it means the massacre of like worker rights within those countries and their culture. Like, I don't know, I don't want like McDonald's and Starbucks ravaging like Syria or like Bolivia or something. I just think that's horrible because like it destroy the world looks the same and everything just like the same 10 brands. Like, who is that really benefiting? It's not benefiting anyone. I think people ignoring that. Like, you're just saying like, let's do like a bourgeois cultural revolution where you destroy culture. You're basically ISIS at that point, and that's like that sounds crazy, but like you're like the liberals have done more to destroy local culture and history than like the Islamists have done. Like, to be honest. Like,
well, Eric, anything to say on small business or?
Well, I mean, we need to align with small business owners. I think there are great potential allies and potential comrades. I don't think we should be, just because they own a small business, doesn't mean that there are our class enemies. I think they could be convinced that Marxism would benefit them in many ways. So I think that's something that's been historically true. And I think we need to explain that to them, that Marxism isn't about getting rid of your business. Like, it's about Marxism is about prosperity and production. And
right. You want to work with your own hands and create some value.
Right.
That's cool. That's good.
It's good.
That's a good thing. We like that, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I mean, there's room. Like we need, other, smaller businesses or, private businesses that we don't need to like get rid of all of them. We need to examine the conditions and how that would be applied. And so I think getting to small business owners as well is really crucial.
Right.
Especially here in America, we're very entrepreneurial.
Well, and they are subject to the same bourgeois state.
Exactly.
Esperanza?
Yeah, so I think one, we need to be fighting monopoly capital. I think, yes, the creation of these, giant companies that are able to, deliver things within a couple days, like that in itself isn't a bad thing. That could be used in service of the people. That could be nationalized under socialism, not under capitalism, though. Like the Bernie left thinks you could just nationalize things under the capitalist state. And it's like, no, that's not going to happen. But under socialism, yes, that could be a good thing. I was involved in like fighting against allowing Walmart to come into Chinatown, right? And we won that fight. And so I think those fights are good. At the same time, I sort of hesitate around some of the glorification of like small business owners. I'm not saying anybody here did that, but it is something I see often. Yeah. I think in the US, it's very connected to this meritocracy idea that like everyone can own their own small business and then you can have your little house with your 2.5 kids and your picket fence. And, as a labor organizer, a lot of the times, if not, most of the time, small business owners side with the big business owners against the workers. A lot of times the labor violations are just as bad in small businesses as they are in big businesses, the wages, etc. I think that, many of them are going to be proletarianized, and at that point, their class interests will align with us. I don't think we just sort of write them off all completely. You know, I mean, I've organized small business owners to support increases in minimum wage. But I do think we should sort of just protect against this glorification of small business, because I think there's like this anarchist idea of like, you know, big, bad, small, good. And I think that's very like juvenile and childish. But yeah, basic point, fight monopoly capital, because that's imperialism. Liberals think imperialism is only a political thing. Marxists understand it's also an economic thing. So we do have to fight monopoly capital like Amazon.
Cool. But Joe, go to River and.
I think Fox wanted to say something. If you want to go first,
sorry, go ahead.
And I can go after.
I just wanted to add to that. Thank you, River. I just want to add to what Esperanza was saying, that even, you know, socialism is about workers benefiting from business. Mm-hmm. It's about workers owning the means of production and owning their business and controlling their workplace. That means they own their business. I think we need to break this myth that socialism is against business. And I just wanted to add to that. Yeah, please correct me if I'm out of pocket or if I'm, you know, wrong or whatever. But I just want to pass it off to River now. I just needed to add that before I forget.
No worries. River, go.
Okay, so I think that the problem with like the logic of, you know, monopolization being good, it assumes that there is a left, like a socialist movement waiting in the wings to nationalize Amazon, and like that's not true. Like that requires an act of Congress, and we have like 6 people in Congress who call themselves socialists, and they're just like all weeping on the floor of the House all the time. Like I don't like, that's not. No, you know, I think that, you know, what is happening is devastating to a lot of people. And when, you know, people who are calling themselves socialists are out there being like, oh, well, who cares about these petty bourgeois, whatever, like losing their small businesses. It's like, people work there, like people have their livelihoods there who don't own the business. Even if like you're taking the hardcore line of like, you know, any person who owns a business, no matter how small, is, you know, an enemy of like the worker, which I think kind of becomes complicated sometimes. But like, sure, like in a truly Marxist sense, fine. But like, if that's a position you're taking, like there's still people who work there, and it's not like we have like a even good, like decent social safety net. Like, I mean, people are only able to like really hang on now because they like they upped the amount that you could get from unemployment, which like I know in my state was like maxed out at like $250 a week or something, which like, I mean, that's more than like a 2-bedroom apartment costs, like where I live. And I live in a pretty cheap part of Florida. So, I mean, it's just, it's insane. Like, this is not good by like any stretch. And I think, I mean, there's also another angle to it. It's like, okay, not when you're monopolizing something, you're not just monopolizing a consumer market, you are monopolizing a labor market as well.
Yep.
So that there are like, you know, there are like communities where like if you want to like get a job that pays more than like minimum wage, and Amazon warehouse is like your only option.
Yep.
And like, what happens if you get fired from there? Like, you're fucked. And I mean, like, that is like one decent point that I think like Elizabeth Warren made. Like,
cut his mic. Where is it?
Well, I hate to be like, but yeah, I mean, no, like, I mean, that it is not just a consumer issue. Like, monopolization under capitalism is also a labor issue, because these people not only do they get to control like what the wages are, and sure, like maybe right now they are like paying above like minimum wage, partially in part maybe to like devastate small businesses, but like there's no guarantee that they're going to continue doing that in the future. And it's also just like, yeah, people should have more than like 2 or 3 options of like places that they can work if they don't have like an extremely specific degree or something.
What? Wait, you're saying labor trades like a commodity or something under capitalism? That's that's insane. Why would you say that? Mila, any thoughts on our beautiful small business owners?
Okay, so yeah, so I don't come from an American context. Again, I just have to like preface with that. But yeah, in a way, like I am a child of small business, take away my Marxist credentials. But when my grandfather came here, like he had nothing, and like it was very hard for immigrants to get jobs because they didn't speak like perfect English or whatever. So starting a small business is actually like the way for a lot of people to go in that respect. But to me, like I didn't know that small business extended to like so many people, because in my family it was literally 3 people. It was my grandfather, my mom, and her brother. And it's like a little print shop. And so like there's no like exploitation of them like happening in that respect. And I mean, like they're not like woke or whatever, and they're just trying to like live their life. And I look at like a lot of the leftist rhetoric around like small business, and I think partly like I like the right, I think, has tried to make small business owners like their little like small business owners to the right is what like Black women are to the liberals, right? Like this sort of Jesus figure that's
the only morally virtuous group.
That they sort of like pander to, but then they never really side with them, you know? And like I think that also like there's a distinction to be drawn between like small family businesses and like businesses that are just like 50 people that like try to skirt minimum wage laws or whatever, which I think is not good. So I think already you're not like properly like I think these leftists that get worked up about it don't properly distinguish between these kinds of businesses. And it's been very off-putting to me, and I think it's very off-putting to, I mean, like speaking from someone who's like, you know, in like I used to like be in this print shop all the time, and like I think, you know, these people could be very easily won over by like the left or socialists, so to speak, because they have struggles that like speak to them. So for instance, like when I talk to my mom or my grandfather and like they talk about like how they're getting screwed over by big businesses and like that, like, or they're being like taken advantage of, and it's like through capitalist processes, and they have the same concerns about things like paying rent. And like when you just like go on Twitter and start talking about how, oh, these petit bourgeois, like how dare they, you know, they're my enemies and blah 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 blah. Like I just don't really see what that accomplishes, because then you're just driving them right into the arms of conservatives. When, like I said, like I've been up close with these people, like with people like this, and like they are winnable if you treat them like humans who are just trying to get by. Especially like I said, like the immigrant experience, it's very hard to like come here and like get hired. I'm not talking like, again, in the US context, I know like there's like the whole like cheap labor thing, but
I think that's well said.
But yeah, I think, you know, I like just speaking from, and I hate to like use my personal experience or whatever, but just like being up close to the issue, I just think like the way that these like online leftists talk about it is really disconnected from the experiences of like normies and from like people who also struggle under the boot of capitalism and have just found that having a small business is their way of survival. Like that's kind of the way I see it. And so, yeah, I think it was Eric who said like we should befriend them, like we should align with them because, like I said, I think they are they're winnable. So, and they also.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And just to close out this topic, I mean, yeah, we live under capitalism. It's worth occasionally just reminding people of this fact of like people are busy choosing paint colors for our intergalactic spaceship. But the problem is we live here. and yeah, most small business owners, right, they pay leases. And what people don't realize perhaps is that the hard-fought, hard-won, and insufficient rental protections that tend to apply to private citizens getting a home, renting a house, they do not apply to small businesses. They can just do rent raises of arbitrary amounts, for example. And you'll see this is happening all over cities all over America during COVID. Is landlords are just pricing businesses that have been there for decades, is somebody's entire livelihood, and probably a small group of people's entire livelihood. They're like, fuck it, we can just raise the rent because we'd rather build apartments on this or whatever, for nobody to ever occupy. And so, you know, I think with due deference to the excellent points you all made about the fact that there are contradictions here. I mean, there is a very stark contradiction that exists between small business operators and owners and the employees of small businesses and simply the bourgeois capitalist state, right? They suffer in the same ways under capitalism in many ways. And then obviously there's also a contradiction between owners of businesses and employees of those businesses. And that's incredibly shitty, and one we, clearly can, we can walk and chew gum at the same time. I think we can recognize that those who are trying to make things with their own hands under capitalism are cool. We want that. That's good. That's human potential and human creativity and all those wonderful things there should be more of. Under a capitalist mode, unfortunately, sort of business ownership is often how that is best expressed. That's how we incentivize that activity. Will that always be the case? I fucking hope not. And because I'd love it if there was a way to do that and unleash that human potential and human creativity, without having to also then be shitty to maybe a small set of workers or whatever.
Sorry. Can I add one more thing?
Please go on, Fox.
I feel like I'm kind of chatting a lot. So please tell me if I'm speaking too much. But I just want to build on that and say that I think this is where socialism would benefit businesses, because if housing is nationalized, then they're not paying rent to a landlord. They've got more money to pay their workers. They've got more money for themselves even. A lot of small business owners, they just lose a lot of money to get their business going. They have to take out massive loans from a bank. That's really destructive, because they're putting, if they can't pay their rent, they lose everything. And I think it also, with socialized healthcare and housing, the pressure for everyone is lifted, isn't it? That's just how I'm thinking about it. Totally. And I think, since I mentioned landlords, I just want to say that like that's also kind of a business, right? It's really parasitic.
Not a productive one.
It's like we're going to see a housing crisis soon, right? Because of COVID shutting everything down, and people haven't been working. And I made friends with somebody who I later found out was a landlord, and I was like, this shouldn't be it. Like, we should have socialized housing. And he was agreeing with me. He was like, yeah, if we had socialized housing, I would give this up in a heartbeat. I wouldn't do this because it's a lot. And he was like, and in August, they, like in Chicago, the city, kind of spread out like all the taxes to the richer neighborhoods. But my friend lives in Pilsen, which is not one of the richer neighborhoods. and it's one of the gentrifying neighborhoods. So they expected him to pay like $25,000 in taxes for the month of August. And what happens if you don't pay your taxes? Well, the taxes go up for bid. And if somebody else can buy your taxes, they own your property. So that's part of the gentrification process. And I think that's another opportune time to bring up how socialism like gets rid of that need so that people who actually want to do businesses in like renovating houses, maybe, because that's like his thing. He likes to renovate. He could focus on that. So anyway, that's my.
Well, thank you, Fox. Sam, maybe you can introduce the imperialism and internationalism topic, and then we'll run through people, and then we're going to go to a Q&A for the remainder of the time we're with you.
Yes.
Thanks.
So obviously under Biden, we're seeing the imperialist core regain its advancements around the world. We've seen Somalia be droned. We see more troops being dispelled through NATO to Iraq and Syria. We see treaties to withdraw U.S. troops being canceled from Somalia and Afghanistan, as well as the UN and other imperialist entities supporting pseudo-leftist candidates in places like Ecuador and Latin America. But I think a lot of people get confused when we talk about imperialism and internationalism, because there's this myth or this idea that internationalism is the same as globalization. I think we can talk about what it means to be an internationalist and an anti-imperialist, and what that looks like in the here and now, at least from our understanding of the world, and like solidarity. What was the first person we had on? You had the list of who.
Esperanza is going to start us out. Known internationalist.
Period.
An anti-imperialist, Esperanza.
People hate me for my anti-imperialism, but whenever I get hate, I just double down. So yeah, I mean, I think that the American chauvinism in organizations like the DSA, people like AOC, Ilan Omar, all of them, is just so blatant. And I think we need to become like just completely internationalist, because that is one of the like glaring holes right now among the US left, right? Xiang Yu, who is like the Marxist Leninist rapper, some of you might know. I love him. He wrote this article that's talking about imperialism, and he says, if imperialism is the highest stage of capitalism, then anti-imperialism is the highest stage of class struggle. So we really need to like sort of take that mantle up upon ourselves. At the same time, though, being anti-imperialist is not just something you do in word. It's not just something you tweet or post on a Facebook status. You have to organize, and you don't need to be perfect at it. You don't need to know how to do it. You just need to learn how to do it, and you need to do it because we need to connect with each other. We need to organize, and we need to develop an anti-imperialist program that we push. Otherwise, we're just sort of sitting on the sidelines saying, no, this is wrong, but not doing anything about it. So be anti-imperialist, be internationalist, but organize around it.
River?
Okay, so I think there is a problem with the left of positioning of the way that like anti-imperialism is presented. And I think that because if you are an American leftist, your primary focus should be Americans because that's where you live. And so, I've always kind of found the sort of, and it's hard to describe because you don't really see it in like mainstream politics that much on the right, but like the sort of like, right wing that I kind of grew up around was always kind of like, oh, well, I don't give a fuck. It's not my country. And like, I feel like that's like a good, like, just fine, push that. Like, I mean, it's like, you don't have to give this whole speech about like, you know, you don't even have to use the word imperialism. Like, just, you know, I think talking to people about it as like, you know, why are we getting in these people's business? Why are we spending our tax dollars over here? Like that, you know, that doesn't have anything to do with us. It's not our country. Like, and that sounds right wing to some people, but it's the, like, that's how you talk to regular people about this sort of thing, is like you exploit like that sort of like tribalism, if you want to call it that. In the same way, like it's the opposite of what, you know, sort of like liberals tend to do when they're trying to gin up war, which is try to like trigger liberal sympathy, be like, we need to liberate the women of Afghanistan, or we need to liberate the Uyghurs or whatever. And it's like, no, just be like, nope, this is not my fucking country. I don't know anything about China. I don't know anything about Afghanistan. I need fucking healthcare. If we can spend this much money on a war, we can have healthcare, we can have whatever it is that you want. And so like, you know, I think that's the way to position it. And I also think that the left needs to, and it's, I don't know how much of this is like out there in the real world. I know you see it on Twitter a lot. But the kind of broad like anti-troop sentiment, which I think manifests in like very good, cruel and like demeaning ways, and like only makes people more reactionary. You know, just most people who join the military aren't wealthy. They don't have like, you know, they don't want to be in part, like they're not doing it to out of like a sense of like deep committed patriotism unless they're like a creep like Pete Buttigieg, who like, I don't know, did like a summer abroad trip in Afghanistan basically, and like made PowerPoints all day. Like the people who are actually on the ground fighting the war are people who, you know, like grew up kind of like I did. Like I was going to join the military when I was like 19 because I was like basically like couldn't live at home anymore because my parents like were not cool with the gay thing because they're like Baptist youth pastors, and like I didn't have any like prospects, I didn't have any fucking money, and I was just like, well, I guess I'll do this shit because like, you know, there are benefits, like monetary benefits to it. It doesn't pay very well, but it is kind of a pathway into the middle class. They'll pay for your college, they'll pay for like kind of training or whatever. You can get jobs after you get out that you know aren't really available to everybody else. And like, I get it, man. Like, I mean, the only reason that I wasn't able to do it is because I have ADHD.
Oh, like, I thought maybe don't ask, don't tell got in the way.
In the military right now, yeah. Like, I mean, it's people need to understand how that system works because it just makes you come off as an asshole. It makes you come off as ignorant. But I think that, like, you know, the left should be, or like whatever we're calling ourselves now, people should be very clear that, like, you know, we need to focus on our own shit before we start telling other countries how to handle theirs. And, you know, both on, you see it both on the left, even like the quote unquote populist left, like Josh Hawley, and the, you know, with Joe Biden and the liberals trying to cook up a Cold War with China. That needs to be, we need to put a stop to that very, very quickly because, you know, there are zero benefits to this for anyone. It's not going, you know, and you know, in this way, I think that, you know, Joe Biden is more insidious than Trump was because, you know, steel tariffs are one thing. Doing military exercises over the South China Sea to try to like provoke the Chinese government is a completely other thing. So,
right. All right. Well, thank you, River. Fox, what do you think about internationalism and imperialism?
I have a lot of thoughts. I think I spend most of my time like on the internet talking, and like on our podcast at the Red Lettuce Red on Twitter, talking about like imperialism and internationalism. And I think that's, you know, if I could go back and redo my bachelor's degree, I think I would do like foreign relations or international some policy or something like that, because and this is, and kind of what River was saying. I hear way, you know, from conservatives, I hear way more, oh, you know, we need to worry about ourselves before we worry about other countries. I think that is a really accessible angle to take with working class people, because they're already like really critical of the Democrats, right? The Democrats are really good at war. They're really good at going to war. They're like stoking a coup in Haiti right now. They've made, you know, a mess in Myanmar, and we're trying to, like, we're the world's largest exporter of oil now. How did we get there? We got there by securing the petrodollar through, you know, giving Saudi Arabia a shit ton of like weapons, and we destabilized regions with fundamental Islamist, you know, terrorists. And so we have to confront these things. Like, it's more than just like people signing up and going to war. It's the covert ways that we manufacture like structural adjustment programs, IMF loans, like all these other things. There's so much more to it than, you know, we need to, gosh. There's, wow, I didn't even know where to go from here. And, but Eric, I'm gonna pass it to you because I'm losing my train of thought, and I'm gonna talk forever because
I think you did a really good job, and I think
thank
you. I'm not used to holding something.
It's like a deck, just throw it in the face.
Well, it's been a while. Jeez. We're in a pandemic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think, Fox, what you said, I agree with a lot you said and what River said too. And I think when we talk about imperialism, I think Caleb Maupin really explained imperialism perfectly. Imperialism isn't a verb or a policy; it's a stage of capitalism. Imperialism is a global system where Western countries underdevelop and keep countries poor in order to make themselves rich. But what we need to start realizing now, we are in a new stage of imperialism, where the imperial core is being underdeveloped, so that comes with new conditions and revolutionary potential and solidarity among the proletariat, which makes taking state power more inevitable. So we need to take a stand against imperialism. We need to take a stand against what imperialism is doing here to Americans, as well as our international proletarian comrades. So I think that's what we really need to be focusing on right now, because it's ravaging Americans here too.
I think the other part of that is, you know, a lot of people like, River brought up, the Uyghurs, or, you know, these people are being genocided or whatever. Like, of course there are, you know, surely there are things that are hurting people in other countries, but the white man's burden is destructive, because like the American psyche thinks that, you know, we're liberating these people, but we're hurting them even more. Look at Libya; they have an open slave trade now. That was a Hillary Clinton's State Department, and
so we can all agree it was a feminist position to take.
Right. Yeah, and I think we have to let go of this idea that we are helping people through these destructive policies, and because we have to remind the public, we have to remind our friends and family who believe these, human rights abuses are happening, that those things cannot be addressed through war. They cannot be addressed through sanctions. Human rights cannot be solved with tariffs. They can only be solved with international cooperation, and our country breaks international law every single day. So, it's important to call those things out, and it's important to envision a world where we're not sending the military or starving people to get human rights, whatever that means.
Beautiful.
Mila, I know this is a very animating cause of yours, and you are one of the people I come to ask about the topic of imperialism.
Go off, Queen.
So just, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that is ultimately what made me more active online, is that issue. I honestly don't really know if I would pay attention to US politics at all if this wasn't something I cared about very deeply. And so I have a lot of sort of thoughts on this. One thing is that I do think it is effective to say this is not you have no interest here in the US imperial project to the average American person or Canadian person in my case. I think that is very compelling. I think also it really drives home the fact that the imperialists don't have allegiance to their own people and their country. They have an alliance with and I'm not saying this in a conspiratorial way or anything, but they have an alliance with people, and their alliance is not determined by their borders. It is determined by furthering their capitalistic interests. And so it does make sense, I think, to tell the average person look, these people care more about Mohammed bin Salman's pockets than they care about you. And I think that having been I went to grad school, which I know another point against me. But I think we've all actually been to grad school. So,
I haven't.
Except Sam. Sam is pure. But so I took Middle East politics, and it was kind of I was shown into the world of the imperialist policy wonks, so Brookings Institute, Atlantic Council, all these think tanks, they are so disconnected from their people's problems in their own country, because they literally play board games about the world is their board game. And I'm not just saying this figuratively, they actually make board games. And it to them it is so you have people who are furthering the interests of capital, and then under them you have these think tank lackeys who are also part of an elite class, which I think is important to note as well. And then you get people who are well-meaning but emotionally conscripted into supporting these wars, or not even necessarily the war itself, but the consent manufacturing that leads up to the war. And that is what we're seeing a lot of right now, because I think that with the internet, that's been made more easily, or that's been more easy to do. There's a sort of demand that everybody condemns the right thing, otherwise you're evil. And I think also the media is complicit in this problem as well. And the New York Times, for instance, the way that they frame these issues, they make it seem if you question, not even if you deny something flat out, it's if you say, I'm sorry, can I get another source? Then you're labeled a genocide denier. That's it. So with China, I think, that's something worth noting, because I am not I'm not a China expert, so I'm reluctant to say like that I know exactly what's going on. But I've said, can I get another source besides like some evangelical weirdo? And like all of a sudden, like, I got people like swearing at me, and and so the thing about imperialism is that it's just impossible to have a conversation because the way that like everything is framed is so messed up and twisted. So like to make it as a starting point, what River was saying, I think is good, but I think like there's also a huge mess that we need to clean up among ourselves, on the left, because like it is actually impossible right now to have a conversation. And Syria, to me, was a big point of disillusionment, to the point where I was actually just kind of like, am I even part of the left? Like, if they're going to be like this, because again, like, it just feels like you're being gaslit to be an anti-imperialist in that respect. Like you're saying, I don't think that like Al-Qaeda should like govern the Levant. And suddenly that translates to like, you love a dictator, like whatever. And so that's why I also think that like the way that like leftists kind of react to things is unhelpful sometimes. So for instance, like they'll say, oh, I don't support the government here, but I don't believe in intervention. Or like, I don't support sanctions because they don't actually achieve what they're meant to achieve. Like that's already giving ground to the other side.
Right.
You're not like the question isn't about whether you like the government or not. The question is, do you have the right to meddle in this? In this, yeah,
Yep, totally.
and similarly with sanctions, like it's like, do you have the right to deprive people of their basic needs because you want them to overthrow their government? Like we need to like be more aggressive and reframe the conversation, because these people are trying to morally blackmail us for wanting less war in the world, which is absolutely twisted. And so like we have to fight back and not cede these grounds to them. And I don't know if that's possible within like, say, electoral politics, because I don't think there's any politician in that sphere that's good on that issue. But
well said, Mila.
we got a big mess in our hands.
Love you so much.
Yeah, we're gonna go to Sam.
Okay. Well, like Mila, I'm part of the libertarian, the bad bitch Marxist pipeline. And I think my issue that I cared most about was imperialism as well. And I had a rude awakening, I think, near the end of my college career when I did foreign policy. And I was like, oh, well, Yugoslavia. And I'm like, oh, fuck. This seems like it should be a thing we intervene. It's like, they tell us genocide and all these things. And I look into it, I'm like, oh, I'm wrong. And it kind of led to a pipeline where, like, at the time I was an anarchist, so I supported like the moderate rebels in Syria, and I supported the revolutionary people and like against Hugo Chavez and against Castro and all these places. And I was like, oh, if I'm wrong about this, what else am I wrong about? And it kind of realized I'm just wrong about a lot of it, thinking I'm an anti-imperialist. And I think that's the issue people ignore. Like, I think a lot of anarchists think they're actually doing anti-imperialism, even like liberals, but they're not, because they have the entire like state harm like talking points with their whole thing. I think also a lot of people don't want to question the narrative because it's uncomfortable. Because like Mila said, like if you question what's happening in Syria, or like I mentioned talk about Yugoslavia a lot because like my dad's side's from there and I had no idea anything about the country, and I looked up like, oh fuck, NATO bombed it. I'm like, well, that's a horrible thing to learn about your family heritage. But you get screened like you're a genocide denier, and it's like, why would I talk about it if like I'm going to be called a thing that no one wants to be called? But I think the reality is that's just what imperialists use against you, and it kind of ties into the 21st century imperialism, where things like feminism and now LGBT rights and stuff are being used against us to justify foreign intervention. Like I've been told numerous times, like, oh, Iran being liberated from their anti-gay regime with zero context of what the reality is, or like Syria or China, like all these places are now like, it's no longer feminism, it's gay rights, because like feminism is very like early 2000s. We used it for like Afghanistan and Iraq. Now it's like, oh, well, now we have to do gay and lesbian and trans rights, and it's like, well, I love all of that, but it's like, I'm not going to actually genocide an entire population for like the gay people who often don't benefit in the real and outcomes. Like if you look at
you mean gays don't love being bombed more than their heterosexual compatriots?
Well, I think about like Syria as an example. There was a gay tour group that went to Syria, and I'm not saying that it was still illegal and there were still many issues, but like that all disappeared. A lot of the places where like there was a secret underground disappeared as well. Like no, like even the gays were like, oh well, I'd rather have the regular government who's at least partially secular versus like the Salafi jihadists who were like, we should murder everyone who shows their hair as a woman and like is a gay man. It's like, I don't think that benefits anyone. We see it now like in like the Myanmar situation where you have English signs in a country where the English is not the language, about intervention and anti-China rhetoric. And it's like, and they're wearing like the catboy like gay outfit, which is like, what is this TikTok in real life? But it's like,
it's a nation of TikTokers.
I don't accept the narrative of like, we must support these interventions because we care about gay rights. I think it's bullshit. I think when we see the reality in these places, there's no context, there's no reality in a situation. I mean, Russia is a good example. I remember in San Francisco, someone was like, oh, if you went to Russia, you'd be murdered because you're gay.
Oh,
and I was like, I talked to real Russians, and there's a big gay scene, a much more kink, like hardcore gay scene in Moscow than there is in like most of the US, where it's kind of cucked and illusory. But it's like, you don't know anything about these places. You're going to decide the entire fate of millions, if not billions of people. And I think that's kind of bullshit. Like, how often do we hear this idea of human rights being used to destroy human rights and mass murder people? Like, I think the term human rights nowadays is kind of useless because it's so co-opted by the imperialist class, like Amnesty International and the Human Rights Committee and all these groups. Like, they're gonna like go out there for Navalny and stuff, but they're not going to talk about actual leftists being persecuted by capitalist governments. Like, it's just bullshit. That's
Well, so to close out this topic, I'll only say I was 14 years old when the Iraq War was. Thank you. When the Iraq War was ramping up essentially to 2003. It's the formative political issue of my of the development of my political thought. And you can argue if that's good or not. It means maybe I was unaware of other issues or I have remained ignorant of other ones. But it was the one where perhaps as you're becoming an adult, it's so obvious what is fair and not fair, right? And that's perhaps all you have. That's a child's morality, but it's what I had. And as I became an adult, there was this instance of essentially sort of the powerful lying to go and attack the weak, right? And it was so clear that's what was happening. And so there was just this sort of a stark moment of stepping off a cliff of there could not be anything more unjust going on. And as a teenager, I'm not a pugilist. I'm no brawler. I'm a scrawny nerd.
Post Twink.
I ended up getting tear gassed over this shit. Like, this is what it meant to me. And so but what I'd say is, even with that depth of feeling, I stand before you, or sit recumbent, reclined comfortably before you, having got it wrong a lot. And that's, I guess, what I would say about imperialism is that it's a very easy emotional play upon your sense of fairness, your sense of justice, your sense of right and wrong, whereby the entire machinery of imperialism in the imperial core, that is, say, in America or in sort of the West broadly, is to make your sense of outrage about the way people are forced to live under capitalism, under a global order that does not value their lives, and say, you know what would make this better? Some bombs. And, you know, Sam will gleefully tell the story. I mean, just as I gleefully tell the story of him being like an anarcho-libertarian weirdo and me arguing around to being a Marxist. When we met, I mean, I was probably would have been an avowed defender of the U.S. campaign in Yugoslavia, basically. I'm not now. Just to be clear, I'm saying I was wrong, but understand what I stand before you with the humility to say of why I defend that is because I saw a situation where every piece of media and every narrative I could access at that time told me that, look, there's just these weak, poor people just being genocided by the big baddies who are just evil Stalinists, which also it's a whole nother complex I had. That's why I became a trot briefly was because I bought all these lines about like, oh, well, socialism would have been perfect in Soviet Union if not for that evil Stalin. You can tell what a good Marxist I was, clearly. But you know, I was a kid. So anyway, sorry, that's a long way of saying I believe that to be an anti-imperialist is to remain vigilant to both your limitations of the information you can access, even about who is powerful and who is not, and who is the righteous and who is the wronged, etc., etc. It's very hard to tell. But if you allow me a moment of sentimentality, I'd say never lose that anger, the anger that you feel on behalf of the people who like we all sit comfortably in our homes, hopefully for a little while longer till the eviction moratorium's lifted. You know, but we sit comfortably in our homes, and that's, you know, like, it is right to be outraged on behalf of anybody who wouldn't have that comfort and that safety. That is a good impulse. But what you have to remember is that everybody who's ever owned a factory or sort of imposed a kind of near slave wagery upon every other human they've ever encountered, they have an interest in telling you that actually the best thing for this region would be if they just had more Coca-Cola production plants and fewer union organizers, whatever. And like, you will be taken in by it. So keep an open mind, remain vigilant, and remain willing to learn and talk to people who will have different views from you, because I think that's the only way to figure it out. That's the only way I figured it out, was I was willing to be shouted at by people who had some different views. No, we had some different views. And then I had some good friends, right, who were willing to talk me through and be like, wait, have you seen this thing about like even the UN report on Slobodan Milosevic? Because like, turns out it's nonsense. Like, and I was like, oh fuck, I was just wrong this entire time. So anyway, that's my mea culpa about imperialism, and an admonishment to everyone to remain vigilant.
I thought it was your Mia Khalifa moment.
Yeah, that was my Mia Khalifa moment. I'm getting my tits out.
You please do.
So now we're in Q&A.
Yeah,
if you have
Q&A.
a specific question, make sure you mention the name. But
wait. Did Esperanza go?
Yes.
Yeah.
Esperanza.
She anti-imperialist.
Wow, why is everyone forgetting Esperanza?
She's still here. Stop erasing her.
River, she's
I
the only
even have
person on
my
your
own
mind.
little hater in the comments, so I'm still here.
Well, first of all,
sorry. Let me just say sorry to your hater who's gone now. I just want to say thank you to our mods.
Yes, thank
we
you.
have
thank you.
our dear Twink Rev mods who are
say that too.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you for the work you do.
Yes, and also Esperanza's nails are
Yes.
fucking amazing.
Yeah. What other? Can you just give us a camera shot of the nails?
Her nails.
Esperanza?
Let's talk about left unity and just look at Esperanza's left hand, because those nails are keeping me
I know.
together.
Not only is her analysis correct, but so is her makeup and her nails.
Love it.
This is why I love my lefty twink, or my tinky twink.
Tinky Twinks. Yeah.
And otters. Well, if you have questions, say who you want to go, or you can just broad questions, and we'll just whoever feels like.
Yeah, I'll scroll back a little bit to give somebody a prompt.
Sorry,
and River, there was a question a little bit back where somebody was challenging you. Did you want to? Could you paraphrase the question maybe, and then give your response first?
Yeah, it said, "I'm sorry. I guess this is in reference to like U.S. troops. I'm sorry, but what does that justify them being complicit in acts of war and killing people abroad? And I just wanted to say, like, I understand where you're coming from, but I also noticed this person's Canadian, so let me just explain how
you're literally Canadian.
recruiting works in the United States, because, like, you know, maybe different in different places, but I know, like, where I grew up, rural area, working class community, we were like, you didn't get an option. You had to take like the test that the military uses to like recruit people and to assign people to like various functions. And so, like, especially if you do well in that test, and you're like, you know, and maybe you make good grades or whatever, like, these people will promise you the fucking world.
Right.
And you're 18 years old. I mean, when I took the test, I was 17. Like, you're like, these people, like, most people don't have fully formed politics at that point. They don't
have fully formed brains. Like,
yeah, they pretend there's not even a war going on. Like, they'll be like, you'll travel the world. It's like, they leave out the part where it's like shooting at people or like whatever, which, I mean, I know a lot of the military is just like sitting on a boat in like the Philippines or whatever for like literally no reason. But, you know, there is a lot of like I think that people don't understand that imperialism, like, some of the biggest like victims of imperialism are the foot soldiers of imperialism itself in many ways. Like, because the way it works in this country is we take people usually from like working class backgrounds, just like 18-year-old kids who want to get out of their shitty hometown and don't have any prospects, and then you send them abroad. Like, and, you know, I can sort of talk about, I guess, in like vague terms, like, I had a roommate a couple of years ago from the same hometown as me. She joined the army when she was 18, 19, and because she like didn't have any prospects, didn't like know what she wanted to do with her life. They were like, you know, we'll give you a signing bonus and we'll give you whatever, and, you know, promised her all this shit. And so she got deployed to Iraq. She was manning like the top of a tank with a machine gun, and a kid ran out in front of the tank, and her commanding officer said, he's got a bomb, shoot. And she did. And like, I lived with this girl for a year, and like, I mean, she would like wake up in the middle of the night screaming. And like, I mean, it took her, like, she was like drunk one night and told me all of this. And because I had asked her, I was like, you know, is this, you know, related to your trauma, like that, whatever. And I mean, she was like, you know, when you're in that situation, when you think that you're about to die, a million things are going through your head. If this kid has a bomb, I could die. He's saying he has a bomb. If I don't obey orders, I can get court-martialed. There's other people in this tank that can die. There's a million things going in your head, so you just do what you're told. And like, I mean, some crazy shit happened like after like I moved out with her. Like, I mean, her life is fucked up, like, because of that and because of other things, you know. Like, I mean, it does real like psychological damage. And like, while we were living with her, like, you know, we had like a guy, it was a friend of our other roommates over, and he was talking about joining the military, and she was like, no, these people are gonna fuck you, like, they're gonna send you to a place like where like the people don't fucking want you there, and they're gonna shoot at you. And like, she was like, don't do it. Like, and she talked him out of it. Like, I mean, like, she, like, you know, in like, I mean, she's not like a political person at all, but she, you know, she was doing an anti-imperialism in like her own sort of way. And like, I think that if you're not like an American, it's kind of hard to understand how it works unless you've like seen it. And like, you'll kind of come to the conclusion that like, you know, most of these people, like, they have no idea what they're getting into. And when they get there, they have basically no control over what happens. You know, and you don't have a choice. If, you know, your commanding officer tells you to shoot somebody, like, you kind of do it. and like there's not really anything that you feel like you don't have a choice. Like the whole concept of free will kind of erodes away at a certain point. And I think that moralizing about it on an individual level is not productive.
Sam?
These people are people that can be easily won over, because the most anti-war people I've met are like troops.
Sure.
Absolutely, we need to get to them. Absolutely.
That's the thing is, I think people have no recognition of history, and so often when the actual massive shift in power from one class to another happens, it's whether the rank and file military sides with the working class or sides of the bourgeoisie. And we've seen for the USSR, China had the People's Liberation Army, and numerous other things like the Vietnamese people all had militaries which were critical. And I think to completely discredit these people, like especially when you recognize some of the most vocal advocates against the Iraq and Afghanistan war were veterans or troops who realized they were being lied to. Because like 9/11, like I think maybe a lot of our viewers are like babies when it happened, but like that had a huge effect on the mentality of people. Were like, well, of course we do. Saddam Hussein did all these horrible things. We must fight there. And then they go and they're like,
yep, so it was definitely Saddam that did it.
And they're like, fuck, I'm like just here doing horrible things to people. And I think they are just like if it's a small business, people can possibly swayed. The rank and file military people, most of whom, like a lot of them, like are people who like I think we ever mentioned, like kind of LGBT people who like get kicked out of home. That's their only option. Like they're not doing it because they want to. Like no one wants to. Like no one's like, I want to go massacre Iraqis in Iraq. They have dreams and hopes, but the reality is they can't achieve them without these like falsehoods in the system. Like colleges like used to be like, oh, if you do military service, you get college for free, and that's not even true anymore. Truly, anyway. So it's.
Esperanza, do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things I really dislike is like this moral condemnation of people. I mean, like when you look at the Russian Revolution, soldiers who were fighting imperialist wars defected and defended the people. They joined the people, right? That could happen too.
Yeah.
However, I do just want to sort of offer some thoughts around the idea that like some of the biggest victims of imperialism are like the foot soldiers of imperialism, which is that, on one hand, like I understand, like my cousin, for example, he joined the army because he had 2 kids and he couldn't afford to really take care of them. So he wanted to get money to go to nursing school, but he ended up getting such bad PTSD and such bad injuries that he wasn't able to even stand on his feet for a few hours, and he can't even get a whole night's sleep because of what he went through. But I think even then, we don't suffer under the boot of imperialism like nationally oppressed people do. So like a lot of my research is looking at the effect of imperialism on women in particular. And like one of the things that I learned is that women in Vietnam, American soldiers would rape them, and the last man to rape them would shoot them in the head. Like that is the evil, like the ugliness of imperialism. And while like, like sort of in capitalism, we all sort of suffer under it. It's like those that are actually the target of imperialist violence, the things that have been done to them, the inhumane things that have been done to them. I just think we should sort of be careful about comparing the two. That's
totally. All. That's well said, and it is a good reminder that and I think all of us probably share the idea that sort of comparing traumas that are different in type and kind is not really useful. We can, as Marxists, just roundly condemn all of it, right? To say that the violence done to Vietnamese women who are murdered by soldiers, well, raped and murdered, yes, by soldiers who are themselves victims of a system that they shouldn't be subject to either. I mean, we can say both of these things are bad.
Yes.
Yeah,
horrible.
But I also think it's useful to also point out that imperialism is the reason why. Thank you. Imperialism is the reason why these soldiers are attracted or forced, I guess, in a way, into joining the military.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, there's people who never perhaps asked for it in the first place, then going and doing monstrous and horrible things. But that's what I guess what the point I'm making is say we can maintain the tension in our heads and say, look, yeah, the people should never have been there in the first place, and the things they did are monstrous.
Yeah.
Mila, I know you have to run. Did you want to give us some thoughts on any of these topics, anything, or just give some plugs, whatever you want?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have thoughts on this, and I think I've moderated on it throughout time, because I think like growing up, I definitely harbored a lot more like resentment against like people in the army, just because my side of things was, from the side of people who had experienced imperialism, and so I mean, I don't think it's helpful now to like moralize, because obviously there are definitely like I don't think that it's good to say if you join the army, and I know this, like, again, don't yell at me or cancel me, but I think this is a safe space from the Black Flags. Even joining the police, it's not like it doesn't make you a bad person. It really has to do with making the best of what you can do, and so I'm now I've become like, the older I get, the more sympathetic I am to that, but I do also agree that when we're having the discussion among ourselves, at least we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that the like biggest victims of imperialism are people who are in these countries, and not only just people in the countries that are under attack, but the poorest people in these countries. And also, as Esperanza was saying, in a lot of cases, women. And that is all the more reason to push back against this new form of imperialism, this new like feminist imperialism or LGBT imperialism, because those people who are on the margins of society, who we claim that imperialism is helping, are actually the ones that feel the biggest brunt of the effects. That said, just as how I don't morally blame people for joining if they do so out of necessity, I think that there also needs to be a sort of sympathy for people who, like, I know people who survived the Iraq War who just will not talk to people who served in the US Army, and like I totally get why. Like, to them, like, that was a traumatic experience, and like they just can't do it. And so I think, we should always, like, my parting words is always extend sympathy where you can, and don't impose like ridiculous moral standards on people. And that goes for everything, not just with war and imperialism. I think for me, I've found a lot of peace in trying to see where everyone's coming from, rather than just like automatically looking at the position they're in and saying like they're my enemy, because you never really know the full picture. And so that's also why our critique of imperialism should be institutional and not about individual moralistic stuff. And with that,
give us some plugs.
Yeah, so yeah, follow my Twitter, my Substack's just my last name, Substack. It's linked to my Twitter bio, because I know no one can spell my last name.
So to be clear, your Twitter is M_L_A_G.
Yeah, I changed it because
it's Mila G with underscores between all the letters, right?
Yeah. And I changed it partly because I didn't want to appear in Google searches, but also River had told me that said meant like thirsty, and so then it was like thirsty Contra, and I was like, I don't want people to think I'm a Contra.
Oh my God, no, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either, but now
I was just making like a Thomas Aquinas reference.
Well, there you go.
So that's all.
Right. So Mila G with a lot of underscores on Twitter. People can find your Substack and your 2 podcasts, Unacceptable and Actually at Capacity.
Yeah, we've been for Unacceptable, we're trying to release some merch soon, so stay tuned. It might be very strange because Ken's in charge of it.
I love Ken. He's so sweet.
He wants to like release a shirt that says "I'm autistic" in Arabic.
I will not be buying that one.
Arabic, though.
I still won't be buying it. But thank you anyway.
Lots of love to everyone.
Mila, love. Well, good night.
Mila, I love you,
Night,
and I
Mila.
definitely agree. Thank you.
Yeah.
I love you.
Oh, and I would just add that like I like in retrospect like agree with like what Esperanza and Mila were saying. Like I shouldn't have said like some of the biggest like victims of imperialism, but like also those people can be victims as well.
Of course.
Yeah.
If you're talking to these people, you know, you can, you know, present it in that way as be like, you know, what happened to you shouldn't have happened. And like, you can kind of say like, you know, because I mean, a lot of these people do carry like a lot of guilt.
Yeah.
Say like, you know,
They're not going to disagree with you if they're traumatized by it.
Right. And so you can, that I feel like that's an in way to sort of like take, if you're like trying to organize these people to like take it to the broader context and say like, this is a societal problem. This is a systematic problem. And like, you know, you are going to have to deal with like the totality of what you did, but you understand that like, you know, the systems that pushed you to do that shouldn't exist, and that like there is an alternative.
Right, and that's I think an excellent point, which is to say that if anybody's read China Mieville's book called I think October, right? I think anybody? It's a novelization. It's a historical fiction of the October Revolution in the Soviet Union, 1917. It's very good. Highly recommend it. But one of the fascinating things he did, yet again, this is, keep in mind, a modern writer, sort of retroactively applying a kind of moral standards, but is sort of talking about the Cossacks, who were, you know, the sort of I guess sort of the Foreign Legion equivalent, who were stationed in St. Petersburg at the time, or whatever, during all these worker uprisings and rebellions that were occurring. And the police, right, who are under the control of the czars, were regarded with a lot of regarded as particularly cruel. And the turning point, at least in his novelization of it, right, and I don't want to claim any historical knowledge here, is when the Cossacks turn against the police. And so you basically have a situation, and this is replicated everywhere, right? Every time there's been a coup or a popular rebellion or whatever, what the military does is important. And so I always think back to a lot of my radicalization to beyond a sort of like, I'm a teenage dirtbag, baby, you know, that kind of like whatever that impulse is, right? Where you're like, the world seems fucked, and I'm just clever enough to see it. The person who structured that for me is a person who enrolled in the United States Air Force a little too young, and then became incredibly embittered, and was a very good online friend of mine for many, many years. I'm still in touch with him. He's a sweetheart. But I guess that the point being that this was a person who was serving overseas in the US military at the height of the Bush era and did not want to be there. But for me, for my political development was very important. And so that's, I guess, always the tension you have to walk, is like, this is a person who didn't know what the fuck they were doing. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I happened to be in a position to make better choices about my life, or easier choices about my life, because I was not living in the US and yada, yada, yada. But you would always say, maybe the measuring stick we should use for people who join the military for good or bad reasons, or for reasons that are just or unjust, should always be a little bit about how do they act when it matters.
Yeah.
And so the Cossacks in revolutionary Russia they chose at a moment of basically when the police started massacring the workers, they chose to ride their mounted units onto the police, right? And they chose to go to battle with the police on the side of the workers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's I think like the thing to always remember is to say, maybe these people are our comrades. Maybe these people can be our comrades. Maybe they're not right now. Maybe the structures they work within are horrible and monstrous, but maybe, just maybe, they are our comrades. And so we should work our asses off. It's incumbent upon us to figure out how do we bring them into the fold and convince them that they should be fighting for the workers, not fighting for the bosses.
So scream baby killers.
So call them baby killers. Yeah.
There's numerous
And complain loudly. Yeah, complain loudly if they get to board an airplane first. That's my recommendation.
Should we go through more questions?
Yeah, if there's any other.
I wanted to add to this because I come from a military family, and I live in an area next to a very large and important military base for the United States weapons manufacturer. And I would say over half of the people in my family have gone through some branch of the military. I have 2 cousins on the ground overseas right now. But my sister was a Marine, and she was a legal aid. So she helped put a lot of criminals in jail, which is it's great that they're tackling sex crimes in the military. But and it could be way better. But most of the people in the military don't actually go overseas. They don't actually they don't actually see combat. They are stateside, working on a military base. So I think that's important to call out, because when we think about the military, when we think about U.S. imperialism, we're always thinking about there's boots on the ground, and we have guns, and we're shooting people, and that's not really how that works. We send organizers to help organize a color revolution. And so I think it's important that we talk about that as well. But also during all of the protests and stuff over the summer, I had actually refriended my sister on Facebook because I don't and I was because I was doing a lot of live streaming at demonstrations, and I just needed her to be in tune with what was going on social media, so that, because she works for lawyers, so I was in case I get arrested and I need a good lawyer or whatever. But I was making all kinds of all cops are bastards protests and stuff or posts and stuff like that, and she finally messaged me one day. She's like, hey, so do you really think all cops are bastards? And I was well, I guess we're going to talk about this, aren't we? And then we ended up talking for almost 4.5 hours about this issue. And she was like, well, I know a lot of really good individual people who are cops. And I was like, yeah, but the system is rotten. And they're a part of that. And she's like, well, what about people who are really trying to build themselves up? And I was like, okay, well, they've built a lot of economies have become dependent on people going to jail. And that's the system. That's not the individual's fault. It's the system's fault. And she had a lot of problems with me saying words inherently bad. And she's like, I don't like that word because it really makes it sound all the people are inherently evil, and I don't believe that. And we disagreed, but we had a really good faith conversation about it. And so I think that we can reach a lot of people I know who are hardcore Marxists, were in the military, who did see combat, but who didn't, and we've just been going through a radical she's radicalizing in her own way, and I support her in that. And I mean, you've like the revolution starts at home, right? You've got to speak to people when they start asking questions in good faith, and that does include talking to people who are in the military. And again, I think it's really important to remember that most people who join the military do not seek combat.
No, well, and Fox, thank you for saying that, and also, you know, kudos, because I it's a good point, because I think it's a point I think all of us share, which is to say that the primary thing about being, say, a radical in America in 2021 is about learning to meet people where they are, because you're not going to meet a bunch. You're not encountering fucking cadre. You're encountering the people who are at where they are. You know, where they are. And so
that's exactly what she said. That's exactly what my sister said. She was like, I don't understand. She's like, she has a college degree in criminal justice, and so she's like, I understand some of these terms that you're using, but some of them I don't, because we have very different academic backgrounds, and so our academic backgrounds were clashing, but also because we come from a lower class family, it was easy to draw attention to those issues as well. And she was like, you really have to meet people where they are with this language, which is why, like, every time before when we were talking about it, I would say things like, oh, it's inherently this, and so, you know, she didn't like it, and so I had to adapt my language so that she understood better what I was saying. And we ended up agreeing on a lot of things at the end of it. And that was huge. We have never had a conversation like that. It was hard. I literally read her like a chapter from The New Jim Crow over the phone. And she, like, something she said that like made me really proud was that she's like, I recognize that there's no such thing as blue lives. And I was like,
yeah. So I want to change topics here a little bit. Esperanza, because we've been talking a little bit about specifically American imperialism, it does intersect in a very troubling and horrible way with a topic in which you have researched extensively and written extensively, which is what I'm going to euphemistically call sex work. And I'd love to ask you a little bit about your perspective on some of that intersection between, say, you know, the idea that we send our 18-year-old inner city kids abroad to wherever the fuck we're trying to invade or destabilize today. But there's also this expectation or normalization of a culture of, oh, local whores, you know, whether it's you know, comfort women or just, you know, Vietnamese hookers as a sort of movie archetype or whatever for U.S. servicemen. Where do you see that intersection? I mean, clearly there's a violence of the interface, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, you know, again, I think that a lot of people still see the sex trade as like an individual practice, like, and I don't think they understand how it is sort of a like globalized, organized industry and network at this point. And I also don't think that people really understand the roots of the industry or how it, you know, developed. So I know, for example, like in certain countries in South Asia, the sex trade over there was brought because of imperialist wars where military brothels were set up, and policies of the IMF and the World Bank, which, you know, because of their interest loan rates and their like sort of cuts on social welfare and other, you know, what they call like social costs of their loan programs, not only devastated the economy and caused like really mass migration in the region, but also, you know, took people's jobs. And so that infrastructure that was there through military brothels that were a result of imperialist wars, which were also very profitable, were sort of seized by industry in that area. And because of the IMF and the World Bank policies pushing large swaths of people into it, they were able to find a lot of profit out of it, right? Because it's, like contributes billions and billions of dollars to the GDP in these countries due to, like the sort of sex tourism industry. But I guess like that's what I think something is so important that we need to see is like imperialism does have a gendered nature to it. It has like a sort of sexualized nature to it. And that's, sort of what I've been trying to explore. I don't know if that answered the question entirely, but yeah.
No, it did. I'm just reminded by so there's sorry, I'm half remembering here. So there's a song by Jacques Brel called Next, which is about his horror as a young enlisted serviceman, I guess, of going to the military brothel, where they literally lined them up by a trailer provided by the army free of cost and sent them all through, right? And they all, and I mean, it's just it's a horrifying reality to think that the idea that military service and things like that are so tied to the idea of like, we are taking children and specifically boys, right? I mean, it's like, because it's all the idea of like, oh yes, women can serve now or whatever. But like the whole structure of this is very tied to, we take boys and we turn them into men. And part of that would until pretty recently involve governments spending money on literally, trailers of prostitutes to just service all the men, right, in the platoon, to turn them into men, as it were. And it just it's I mean, it's mind-blowing. And maybe that's just my kind of gay boy sheltered life of nobody ever offered me a trailer full of male prostitutes to turn me into a man or whatever, but I just, it blows my fucking mind. And I guess I was hoping you could help.
Can I talk really quick? I just think going off of that, I think this masculinity crisis within the military is also an appeal within the LGBT sphere. I think a lot of closeted gay men or trans people or whatever will enter the military because they want to prove themselves as not what they feel. I mean, I think a really great example is like Chelsea Manning. Like Chelsea Manning was not out at the time of her service to the broader intelligence, media, or military structure. And it wasn't until she was mass incarcerated for revealing war crimes that she came out. But I think when you look at a lot of people, like this debate around, like, I don't know, trans people in the military or gay people, I think a lot of it is there because there still is the pressures to conform. And for many people who have low opportunities, that is the only way out, or to feel like you're doing what you need to do. I mean, the prostitution industry also includes like men buying boys, like I mean boys like an actual, like, not adults, like children within these countries. And I think also a lot of military men will have their first gay relations with other military men in these countries. And I think there's a lot of complex relations of like masculinity within this, which is what Esperanza's talking about, that I think aren't discussed, and it leads to a lot of really toxic negative outcomes for everyone.
Right. River, did you want to weigh in here?
Yeah. I think, and I just kind of want to weigh on this because the only person that I sort of like talk to like regularly or like semi-regularly who is like involved in the sex trade is like, I mean, I guess we can talk about it because he's like been on Sam and Gion's podcast, but like Matt Muck, like who's like a good friend of mine, and like whatever, he's like a famous like porn star, and he's like, I don't sleep with anybody I don't want to sleep with, and like, he can make like decent money, and he's like, yeah, I mean, if I could do something else if I wanted to, but this is like whatever I want to do, it's easy money, I don't mind doing it, and like whatever. And like, I think that people have kind of got it in their mind, like I know that that's not like the norm in like the sex trade, but like some he knows that too, but like for some reason people have gotten it in their minds that like that is the norm, like people have like the level of autonomy that like he does, and like that's like not true for most people, right? And so like, I think, and maybe, I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Esperanza, but like what kind of like what your sort of line on this is, that like prostitution should not be criminalized, soliciting prostitutes like maybe should be, because like that sort of like gives you the power to where like if you, for people who maybe aren't like Matt and like have to are doing this like truly because they don't have any other option or whatever, like if they feel like they are threatened, they feel like they can contact the police or whatever without being in fear for like their own like freedom.
Yeah. So one, I mean, I love Matt. I think he's so cool and like just so nuanced. I like him a lot. Also, though, I mean, most people in the sex trade are not famous porn stars with a huge platform and following. Like he's, let's be honest, like he has like a certain level of success that most people just simply don't have. But like something I think about a lot, and I really don't like using like personal anecdotes because I hate the whole, I mean, I think we all agree too, like, and River, you have like knocked this argument out of the park with what you've written on it, but like the whole like lived experience argument and like the standpoint bureaucracy is just such BS, but like one thing like my clients would always tell me is like, oh, you're too smart for this. You could do other things. Why are you doing this? Like, you're not who I expect to see. And that used to be insulting to me, but now it's like insulting in a different way because I realize that the people they expect to see are people that don't have any other option. Like they know it's people who are there because of, they have to be. And when they see someone who maybe is articulate with their words or sounds educated or like they're capable of doing something else, they're surprised. And I think that goes to show you that like there's kind of an issue here when you're buying sex from people and you don't really care about the condition they're in, Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start wrapping up. We're going to call it a night, but first I'd like to go to everybody and ask them a little bit about any final closing thoughts on anything we've talked about tonight, and where people find more of them or their work or what they're interested in right now. So Fox, would you like to start us off? Or Eric, do you want to start us off? Up to you. You're Fox. The red lettuce. So, you let us yourself. Let us end
let
with
us
you.
Know what you want to talk about.
Well, I just want to say that I think everything that was said here was very beautifully said, especially in these last few moments. And throughout this whole live stream. And I hope everyone has, would agree with that. And I think being a part of the, I think we all represent the LGBT community. And I think this is something that's not normally said among people that are in this community. So I appreciate everyone that's in this live stream commenting and that follow our work, and I hope they continue to do so, because I think a lot of our voices aren't heard in this community that speak to these issues. And I think especially people like Esperanza get very overlooked, and that's so wrong, because she has a great analysis. And I really hope that we all stick together. And well, first of all, I know we will, because we're very principled. and we have a really good analysis on what's going on. And I love everyone here very much, and people who are also in the lives, in the comments. So we really appreciate the support.
Eric, where do people find more of you?
Oh, more of me and Fox and
well, both of you.
both of
Fox,
us.
I assumed I was giving it to you first because I assumed Fox would get the red lettuce plugs, but you are Eric_Unger89.
Yes,
on Twitter
and at Red Lettuce.
The Red Lettuce Red at
and
Lettuce Red.
Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube.
Yeah,
we have
it is a wonderful channel. I've got to say, it's substantial, and you deserve a following 1,000 times larger than you have.
That means a lot. Thank you.
You're gonna make me cry.
I know. I'm already lactating, I think. But that's very nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have a lot of great work coming out. We have a lot of collabs and episodes coming out soon. A lot of interviews about what's going on in Latin America, especially in Ecuador and Haiti and Honduras. So please stay tuned to all of that. And yeah.
Thank you, Eric. And just because Olympia Logic, our dear friend in Chicago, is asking why Chicago boy Eric is in Milwaukee.
Yes.
Well, it's because it's just up the road.
Yes, it is. And I really appreciate Olympia's support as well.
Yes, we love Logic.
We love her very much.
Darling comrade of ours.
She's a Patreon, and we very much appreciate her support. So Chicago is only like an hour and 10 minutes away.
Yeah.
So
we were doing this live stream, and
Yes.
Eric agreed to pop up after work on Friday, and we had a lovely evening last night. I made some dinner, and we shot the shit. We got to meet in person for the first time.
Yes.
And he slept over in a slightly chilly room. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
And so that we could do the live stream in person, because honestly, I hope one day that the full More Marxists You Can Handle lineup can be an in-person gathering. How fun would that be? I mean, we don't need to all be Zoom nerds
The gay commune
forever.
is happening here
Yeah.
in the Midwest. The gay Marxist commune is happening.
So anyway, you're heading back tomorrow, right? Is that your plan? Yeah.
Well, no, I thought you guys.
You live here
adopted me.
now.
You
Yeah.
adopted
Okay.
me.
No. Sorry. So he's our new child. So anyway, River, you're up next, buddy. Could you tell us, please, a little bit about where people find more of you in order to maybe find your home address, your details?
Send
yeah.
That's the most important.
Could you lift your head above your arm of your head, etc. Et there's many questions about you personally, but also, what are you up to, friend?
I don't know. So I just got done moving into this apartment, and I'm gonna die here because I hate moving and I never want to do it. So yeah, you can find me on Twitter at GayLiarOnline. I've got some podcast appearances coming up in the next couple of weeks that I'll tweet out whenever those come on.
Where at? What's your Twitter?
On my Twitter?
Yeah, what is it?
What
He already said it, Sam.
Oh.
You paying attention? Gay Liar Online.
didn't say
God damn it,
He
Sam.
did. He said it.
Oh.
You did.
He said it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the
I'm gonna beat you later.
Also, you're being implored to move to the Midwest, River, which I honestly think would be a good suggestion.
Oh
you're
my
such
God. He's a Midwest boy at heart.
I know he's such a
Yeah.
hot he's such a hot
corn-fed.
boy.
Look at him.
Wait,
Look at
is,
him.
he has
is
like
your
those-
handle Gay Liar? I was always
Yeah.
thinking of it like Gallier or something.
Oh my God! Stop it.
I'm so stupid. Okay, never mind.
No. I know nobody gets it. I'm probably going to change it at some point because the podcast that I'm going on soon was like I'm assuming they're going to put like my Twitter handle like in like the episode description. It's like a very serious, very British like political podcast, and I feel so awkward with this.
Don't dare change it.
It's better
That's
than
so
your last
good.
one, honestly.
Yeah, but I would move to the Midwest, but I don't know how to drive in the snow.
I'll teach you.
I'll teach you.
Yeah, Eric will teach you.
I'll teach you.
Sam won't teach you.
No, I'll teach you.
Okay, Fox will teach you.
I will be visiting Sam and Gian sometime this summer. I've committed.
Yeah, we're gonna see River in the Twink Rev Hype House.
Esperanza, you better fucking come up here.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, check my writings on twinkrev.com. I don't have anything planned to come out anytime soon, like as far as writing goes, because I'm kind of busy. But I mean, sometimes I just write shit in the heat of the moment, so who knows? You've got a lot there. So yeah. River is our star twinkrev.com contributor, and go check out his writings. Yep. Let's go with Esperanza. Where do people find more of you? If they want to come into the chat, say, and just grief you, et cetera, et cetera.
If they want to grief me, they can roll up and catch these hands. No, I'm not threatening violence.
Yeah,
completely.
I'm choosing
nails,
violence.
Those beautiful nails.
So you can find me on Twitter at @NClass Society. I don't know why there's a space. I was on like 2 energy drinks. That might be why. Please show us all some love, especially me and River, because we're always getting canceled for saying things that are just kind of common sense to the majority of people, but apparently piss off all the snowflakes. I really don't like snowflakes. If you're a snowflake, don't follow me. But if you're not, please follow me. Let's interact. Let's be friends.
If you're a snowflake, it's just cash app or Venmo Esperanza.
Yeah.
If you're not gonna dox us for truth, then follow us, please.
Hey, yes, bitches.
Well, Eric, do you want to give us some?
You talk to Eric. It's Fox.
It's Fox's turn.
Didn't Fox start?
No.
Fuck, I'm sorry.
So
I can't tell you apart.
You're sundowning.
I am.
Honey.
I'm. Listen, Fat. I'll challenge you to a push-up competition.
You later.
Me and Corn Pop, we down at the pool. We rubbed my leg here.
Okay.
Sorry, Fox.
You see so many interracial couples nowadays.
Did Lumpia Logic say docs for being hot Marxists? That's just what we're gonna say from now on.
True.
Yes, I love her.
I was gonna say that too. I was gonna say you guys keep getting canceled because you're so hot.
Sorry.
People call you because you're hot, and then you say something smart, and then they're like, "Wow, you're hot. You're not supposed to be smart." But
yeah.
I mean,
Fox,
look at all
I want to know more about you. Tell us about you. Share yourself with us.
Okay. So, I do a lot of like shit posting on Facebook. I really wanted to like, I don't know, publish some of that somewhere.
Oh my God, if any of you knew a publishing outlet that had an audience.
I'm trying to drop a hint that I'd like to write an article for Twink Rev.
Approved. I mean, good God.
Okay, great.
We have the publishers in the room.
Yeah.
Just pitch me.
You better do it, Fox.
You can follow me on the Blue app at Solidarity Fairy. I'm on Instagram too. And I use Instagram for like thirst traps and my music, which you can find on SoundCloud.
Which is excellent. Just gotta say, sorry. Let me say you're not allowed to say, but I'm gonna say Fox does really impressive musical production.
It makes my nipples cry.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
I'm lactating right now just thinking about it.
I love you guys. You can find that at Cadno with a K. It's the Welsh word for
Which K?
Oh.
First K, second K.
Both of them.
Both Ks. Okay.
They're both Ks. They're both Ks.
AADNO.
Yeah, I'm trying to move to Wales and join the independence movement there. I'm taking my anti-imperialism internationally, Esperanza. So you'll be with me every step of the way. And if you're in the UK, fuck the Queen. That's what I'm trying to say.
Don't fuck her.
No, don't fuck her. She doesn't deserve it. Down with hereditary monarchs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
incest.
literally.
So
Don't be ableist now.
Oh, sorry.
Windsor can get it, and I think
Okay.
that's refer to her. We should just refer to her as Liz.
Liz Windsor.
Yeah.
I've always talked about yes, Phil just being in the castle and Liz turning up very fucking drunk off her ass, because I don't know if you've seen her daily schedule of drinking, where she goes out of the palace, say, and she's like, Phil, let me in, Phil. Because we've all been there. Sam, could you please tell us about the Twink Revolution and why you're wearing these sweaters?
Who are you, Diane Keaton?
Okay, no, I'm trying to make socialism sexy again by wearing not horrible outfits, which I think we all do. I'm at Twink Rev Sam on Twitter. I changed it after my mysterious disappearance and reemergence. I have an article coming out soon. It's on woke politics and the right wing. So be ready to see that hopefully soon. Gian. Twink Revs has many amazing articles in the works coming. So stay tuned for that. And if you want to support us, you can go to patreon.com/TwinkRev. There's also, I'm not going to give any details or anything, but there is some big news coming from the Twink Rev sphere within, hopefully soon. So stay tuned. It's very exciting. I'm not going to say anything because I'm not a spoiler, but
I'm going to spoil.
I'm a hype house person. I'm getting you hyped. Like
I'll
it's
spoil.
some big news. It's some big.
Well,
news.
now I want to know what it is.
Well, I'll spoil.
I'll tell you after.
No, I'll tell you now. I'm not going to give any specifics, but I'll just simply say goodbye. That these are our dear comrades, and we love them dearly. And part of the Twink Rev brand has been very tied up with me and Sam being kind of shit posters at heart.
Yeah. Dumb
So.
fags.
For those of you who are sort of hanging on to the bitter end, I mean, I guess the announcement is only to say we're going to rebrand the website, and I will not spoil anything about what that is and what we're going for in that, but only to say that the Twink Rev podcast will remain strong and proud. But for the interests of these dear friends of ours who get cancelled on the daily for their views that are should be common sense, and that we believe should be common sense, and we hold it to be a self-evident truth they should be common sense opinions, and that nobody should be punished for holding those opinions and speaking the truth. We're going to be doing some work together with our new contributing editors, Mila and Esperanza, and our old contributing editor, River, and me and Sam. We're gonna be doing we're doing a little bit of remodeling on the brand, and we're very excited about it, and we're excited for you to come along with us. So anyway, just want to say at Twink Rev is where you find us, and twinkrev.com. And thank you so much for joining us. We have really appreciated that you've come for this. More Marxists than you can handle, and hopefully you were able to handle the number of Marxists you had in front of you. And we'll see you again next time, and hopefully we won't leave it so long next time. Bye.
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 Did someone ask if we're pregnant?
Are you pregnant? Anyway, I'm not.
When River showed his
friend.
fist, I became pregnant.
I've been trying to get pregnant for like 5 years.